Hello everyone, I'm Paul Santilli. I head up the SCIP organization, SCIP, Strategic Consortium of Intelligence Professionals. And I'm here with two experts and friends of mine, Michelle Secker and Mike Ratcliffe, both from Fold & Company. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, really, very glad.
We're here in New Orleans at our Intellicon North American event. Intellicon is obviously one of the premier intelligence association conferences that we have around the world. We're putting in many Intellicon events around the world, but having experts like Michelle and Mike here is really going to be a benefit, I think, in the overall community of intelligence thought leadership, as well as the contributions you're making in the intelligence field as a whole. So thank you. I first want to get started here about Fold & Company. Tell me more about what Fold & Company is all about.
Should I start?
Yeah, you start.
Well, we were talking a little bit just a moment ago about the history of Fold, and Fold is actually a 47-year-old company, and the people who founded the company were pioneers in competitive intelligence, and we have continued that tradition till today. We are still innovating in how to leverage and how to gain competitive intelligence, how to help our clients, and we mix that in with other techniques, other strategic consulting help that we can offer to our clients. And like every company, we are leveraging data analytics and AI across various industries and to help our clients. Yeah. So we're out there in the forefront.
Yeah, and Lenny, who started the firm off, Lenny Fold, he used to come to this every year and give presentations on ethics. Very well respected. So I know SCIP very well.
Excellent, great. I know you've been in the industry, like you say, for quite a long time. SCIP has been around for several decades as well. As you may already know, what we've been trying to do with SCIP, now that we're the consortium of intelligence professionals, we are obviously keeping CI, competitive intelligence, as a core foundational element. You can't get away from that. That is absolutely required. But we're expanding more into the other type of data-driven intelligence applications. What is your perspective on that in terms of the expansion, the wide-angle lens perspective on using processes and methods and tools to expand the intelligence envelope beyond just competitive intelligence?
Well, I think it's fascinating because I wrote this book 2 years ago on CI and AI, and I've been following the story of how AI and computers have come into intelligence. Because when I started off like 2 years ago, two decades ago, it was all personal human intelligence that we went out or collected from the internet. But you've been seeing AI and computers coming into different areas of the market bit by bit. And what's interesting is seeing how that's evolved. It evolved from just secondary information to now pulling in primary information from different sources, blending them together, and it's becoming really interesting in what computers can do. Gen AI obviously is a great way of pulling information in. Lots of still limitations, which is what we really try to understand. But it's a great tool, and it's allowed us to actually move much more into primary information, so be that real intelligence on top of the computers.
So to that primary intelligence theme, I'd like to always re-emphasize in my discussions with folks around the importance of human intelligence and bringing that human aspect in. So Michelle, help explain a little bit more in that space around the value of human intelligence and what Fold & Company is doing, and in the industry as a whole, how important that is in the intelligence industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that human intelligence is important in two ways. So number one, we can't just rely on data. We actually have to interpret it, to understand it, and help our clients make sense of it all. So as much as some of the technology can do that to a certain extent and structure the information, that interpretation is still left to human intelligence. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect, just getting back to primary research and primary intelligence, it's critical. The world is moving very, very quickly. So even if we can somehow leverage AI to crawl primary research interviews and expert interviews, it's not the same as speaking to somebody currently. Things change quickly. Yeah. And Mike has this great slide that he puts up whenever he does training on CI, that CI is like fish. It gets old really quickly.
Interesting metaphor, but I get where you're going with that. The whole aspect around age and the old CI prior to having sophisticated tools to compile and analyze data. It was always about, intelligence being done in batches. And I have several slides that I use in regards to intelligence being accumulated. From the time a project is initiated, you start gathering the knowledge around that. It takes you 6 months to put that knowledge in place. You have an action plan, and by the time you're actually implementing an action plan, in the old days was 8 months to a year after the original problem was identified. Today's world, that's just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely useless to have that sort of thing. So I'm always preaching about, in alignment with what you're saying, the real-time aspect, getting content as close to real-time as possible. Now, from a human intelligence and from a primary intelligence, that poses challenges, because in the primary space in itself, there's a time lag. There's going to be an interim in some sort. So managing that is also going to be key. But how do you bridge that, then, into the primary intelligence time lag, so to speak, with the changing world, the dynamics of the changing world, with the tools like AI who can help maybe automate some of that stuff?
Well, that's changed as well.
Yes.
Because when I first got into it, you had to dial, and that was hell. It was not fun. Now we got lead generators. Yeah. We go to these companies, we give them very specific definition, who we want. They've got to have left this company 6 months ago. They've got to have this knowledge about the industry. They come back with like 3 people. We've kicked off projects and got into those primaries within a week. And sometimes the first primary is like, wow, we got 80% of the information we want. So actually it's changed. And the thing that's really interesting, Paul, is where we're finding competitive advantage is people using AI.
Of course, yeah.
And that stuff is not published. And we're finding companies have got private databases. They're using that as a focal point for new processes. And when you pull that together and understand it, the client goes, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just amazing, the gaps in knowledge between different companies. And when we do that, so there is that lag, but actually, sometimes you can be lucky and find that actually that lag is not too bad.
It's not as dramatic as it used to be, because the people that you're acquiring the primary content from is using AI to get a lot of the information.
Yeah.
And that is inherently then reduces the overall time to insights, time to intelligence, so to speak, as I always say. But the equation I always say is, your time to insights and time to intelligence, time to execution has to be less than your competitor in order to be effective in the marketplace, right? And the toolboxes that you have filled with AI type tools and knowledge management tools and all those kinds of things are mechanisms by which you can gather that insights faster and have that. So one of the things that I've encountered, and I speak on this topic quite often, is around the AI space and the fact that the information that's used in AI is basically old data, right? Because AI learns, the algorithms, the LLMs are all learning from old information, right? And on top of that, in addition to that, is the fact that the information coming is usually internet-based, social-based, whatever it might be, but you have to worry about the accuracy, the veracity of the information coming. And the outcome is basically a best guess calculator, as I like to simplify the means, to what is happening. Now, you have to kind of temper that with truth and validity. And then you also have to look at how do we project this from a scenario planning and from a foresight and a futures perspective. Tell me, Michelle, your perspectives on some of that, that sort of modeling.
There's a lot going on in that question, but let me take pieces of it. So I would agree with you. I think we have to be really careful. So ChatGPT, we were just talking about in our the session that we ran this morning. It can be a really useful starting point in many cases. But you do have to be careful about the data sources, where things are coming from. You just double click and then you try to find things and you're like, where did this piece of information come from? It came from a sponsored paper. It might have come from a Google Doc somewhere. It's hard to know. And so if you're going to be making business decisions based on information, you have to be very careful of where you're starting, where you're leveraging it from. So one of the things that we found is that actually if you can leverage that kind of Gen AI, and other AI techniques, but really make sure that you understand the data source. You really curate your data set, right? And understand where you're getting from. That is different. Then you can actually develop your own modeling techniques and interpret that data. So that's one piece of your question.
No, but that's an important piece, because many times I get folks to come back and say, we used the data that was provided and we came up with this conclusion, but it doesn't seem to reflect what's happening. And my response is usually, one data does not a trend make. And a lot of times they don't triangulate the data sources and they rely on one source of information, and that leads them usually down the wrong path. So that's probably a scenarios that you've probably seen in your career in terms of, and how do you manage?
Well, I still come back to the fact that to really get to the right data is primary.
Yeah.
As I say, what we're seeing is companies have got their own private database, which actually those databases where they're collecting data. It could be sensors on their equipment, it could be direct relationship with their customers as they purchase things, but they're private databases, and they're using that to basically super in charge their whole sales and marketing strategy. And those types of developments, using AI in that way, very, very powerful. So when we use AI, we use AI to a certain degree, but what we've also do, we'll customize it for a particular project, but where we're really seeing this competitive advantage, we have to use basically going back to the old techniques, because that information isn't out there. And I really want to stress that, because it's amazing when the stuff that we do find out, real competitive advantage, and the client doesn't know that.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily readily available in open
It's
source.
not available on the out market as well. People aren't going to publish what they're doing with AI.
Yeah, of course, competitiveness-wise, why would you?
Yeah,
Right?
right.
Very good. So obviously the importance of primary, and that's, without a doubt, I'm 1,000% in agreement with that. We at Intellicon here in SCIP, we have incorporated a number of different primary tracks. And our event has keynotes and general sessions, and you'll be speaking here as well in breakouts around the primary track. Help me understand, maybe for the audience, to get a better feel for, what are some of the different nuances around primary? You had mentioned about customer databases and the need for having that direct, real-time sort of involvement from individuals who are put in a position or are primed to be in a location that allows them to provide the most beneficial content. What are some of the other nuances in terms of not only an acquisition, but an analytics around primary, and maybe some of the execution and actions that come out of primary? What are some of the things that you might want to share? Michelle, I'll ask you first on that.
I mean, I think it can be used for so many different case studies. As you mentioned, we help strategy and corporate development teams when they're considering acquisitions to uncover some interesting information about their potential. You have to be very careful, and the due diligence process can only take you so far. So leveraging CI for due diligence is actually incredibly valuable, and we've uncovered insights that have actually helped guide our clients' strategies. So that is one other use case. The classic use cases, which is, a disruptor has come in and I'm worried, and I've kind of been following them, but they seem to be really doing some things and they're growing in market share. What's going on? What's driving that strategy? That's a classic use case for primary, and we see that very often. And then thirdly, of course, is just everything when it's AI or other technology, could be new use of molecules, whatever the case may be. People are trying to understand, what is this company doing? What is my competitor doing? What do they understand about the market that I simply am missing? And in those cases, that primary is invaluable.
So we originally started the conversation about the expansion beyond the traditional CI space into this, what I call the intelligence ecosystem. These application areas that are essentially anywhere data centric, anywhere that's data generated by definition, right? So in that space, the applications around the primary element can play a part in virtually any location that you're looking at, right, Michael? I mean, the ability to really have the investigation and the analytics and the actions to be complementary to maybe automated processes, to really look at things that are in healthcare and supply chain and textiles and energy production and all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, and I think that we actually just completed one job that was really interesting, where a new internet company was coming in and was attacking an incumbent. And the incumbent had a view of how they should respond to that, and they asked us to go and do research, specific research on this new disruptor that had come in. And we looked at the market, and when we looked at the company, we gave them a view of the whole strategy of that company, where it was going and why it was being successful, and whether the client strategy was right relative to that. And I think it was good that we were a third party in doing that, because our answer was, maybe you don't have actually the right strategy, because you're not viewing this this disruptor coming in the right way.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter today of doing CI and doing human intelligence. It's also interpreting that for the client, really putting it into the context of what's happening in the broader sense of their marketplace, where they're sitting and what they should do.
It's a much wider angle lens.
Yes.
I think that's what's,
Yes.
and that's because, you know, the world is smaller with the fact that data is being so prevalent and being used. The world's gotten very small in that context.
Yep.
And you need to have that wider lens to look at things more from a systemic standpoint. And I always use the analogy of, you know, it's basically sitting in front of a machine that has 50 dials and knowing which dials to tweak at what time in order to make things systems thinking type of approach. And I think that's more prevalent than ever in today's society with the
Technology is moving so fast
Yeah.
that you've got disruption coming in from left, right, and center. And if you don't have that 360-degree view and can help clients and have that open mind, because we did a workshop not that long ago where the client says, we want to look at this bit of the marketplace. And we said, look, there's an adjacent market that could actually be coming in and impacting you. And they hadn't thought of that. So again, we have to push to make sure that the client really thinks broader than they may be. Because they get so siloed at
Without, and that's unfortunately, that's somewhat inherent in the nature of the business or even in human nature to be siloed and be wanting to be,
Right.
you know, this is the box of comfort that I want to operate in. So I want to kind of wrap this up by using what you had just said about the peripheral sort of organizations that you, as part of the 360 perspective that you're offering. Michelle, what do you think, you know, in the context of expansion and organic growth for organizations, the peripheral behaviors of organizations is usually one by which content is used for mergers and acquisitions, for development of new products, for innovation opportunities, for spin-offs and things of that nature. What's your perspective in that space about using primary in this 360 view to maybe identify some of those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, that's always very, very useful, but I think I'd like to go back to almost what Mike was talking about and just that grounding yourself in thinking about the industry and the Porter's five forces and really understanding who you are, who are the other players, and what's happening in the adjacent spaces, because you can't be blind to any adjacent spaces. So it's just like human nature. If you don't talk to people, if you don't read the paper, if you don't talk to people, you're not going to get those other perspectives. You're not going to have that thought process of what else is in the realm of possibility. And so sometimes there's a little bit of a lack of imagination. And it's like this client that Mike was talking about, you know, they had defined their strategy and they were kind of going to go after it. You've got to sometimes say, stop, wait, look around, look here, look there, and understand what's happening. Exactly.
You know what I try to do always? Tell a story. If you can tell the story about what's happened to the marketplace and the company, then you're halfway down the road.
The narrative is very important.
And then the client understands it, and everything goes into context.
Excellent. All right, well, I'm going to wrap this up with your perspectives on SCIP and on Intellicon. We obviously, certainly appreciate you folks being here and supporting our efforts here. What's your initial take so far and what you've seen?
It's great. I love coming to SCIP. It's really, really good. Always meet old faces and new faces.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about.
Yes, some of the older faces than others.
I'll say I've so far it's been terrific, and what really impressed me in the workshop session that we ran this morning was the level of participation, the quality of the people, and the fact that these folks aren't just learning from us, they're learning from each other.
Yes.
And it was great.
That's the beauty, and thank you so much for contributing that, by the way. But that's what I find is the like you say, it's that 360 learning experience, really, in the what we're calling the master classes and these workshops. And you know, we have a full week ahead of us with a whole bunch of other engagement and networking and dialogue and so forth, use cases, best practices, all that kind of stuff. So again, I want to thank you both, Michelle and Michael, thank you again for being here. Appreciate Fold & Company support, and hopefully we'll see you at many more of our Intellicons around the world.
Definitely.
Thank you,
Thank you
Michael.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
Paul.